Well, the thing about Rock is he's very creative, and I like to pride myself on being a creative guy. That's been one of my frustrations over the year at ESPN is that they just don't have a lot of people that understand the talent that people that go through the WWE have, and they're just like, well, you're just this, and that's all you're ever going to be. And when you have a character in the WWE, you can only go as far as you're willing to take yourself. So Rock had this incredibly good writer that they had chemistry, and that guy is still working with Rock's production company to this day. So you're talking about a nearly 20-year relationship of a guy who came in as a young kid out of college. Rock liked him. He wrote good stuff for him, and then they worked together. Then I would walk into the process, and I'd be like, here's how I think I can add to it. And that's how the collaboration process would work. And it would just be the three of us in the corner of a room, and then he would go and work out, eat his 5 chicken breasts, and, we would hopefully knock him dead that night. But The Rock never had a minute to breathe. He always, every part of his day was spoken for, but you can't fault somebody for going to the gym for an hour and a half when you look like him. So he was one of the few that Vince was like, do your thing, because I know when the red light comes on, you're going to be ready. And eating, nutrition, working out, that was part of being The Rock. You can't be The Rock unless you look like a Rock. And that's what I loved about him. From the minute he walked in to the minute he left the building, he was all business, and he delivered every single time.
When you're collaborating with him, are you coming up with some ideas and they're accepting your ideas, or is it harder because of Brian Gewirtz and The Rock? Would it be harder to almost get your idea out there, or is he very very open with you guys and forthcoming?
Oh, he was very open, but remember the Rock. You're talking about arguably the biggest star in the history of the business, and you could argue Hulk, you could argue Stone Cold. So let's say one of the three. So one of the three in the entire history of the business. So as the guy who's being allowed to be a part of it, you only really speak up if you really think you have a really, really good idea. Now, as time went on, they trusted me more and more because we had so many of these magical segments together. And, it was kind of my idea at WrestleMania in Toronto for me to drop to my knees, and say my prayers and that I ate my vitamins. That was my idea to do that. And it turned out being great. People have brought that up a million times when I said, what up, G? Like you never called God G. But we did it. And so those type of things, it's always fun when they work, when people laugh. And then as I got away from being the goofy guy and got into the ring, then a lot of that stuff I came up with on my own. And so that stuff I did. But when it came to The Rock, I only made suggestions when I really thought it would help. I think what it is, and this is probably, I have two favorite stories with The Rock, and they happened at the beginning, the very first night, and they happened at the end. And I think it set the tone and also led to the respect that him and I have for each other even today. And the very first night that I was allowed on the air, and of course nobody knows who I am, and wrestling fans are incredibly fickle and demanding, and get off the stage, we don't know who the hell you are. And so Rock was already an incredibly huge star, and he already had all the sayings that he had. It doesn't matter, Rudy Poo, all that kind of stuff. So he comes up to me the first night, and obviously I'm excited, I'm nervous. It's going to be me and him. He goes, hey, I've got an idea. And this is what people need to understand about The Rock, is that he's incredibly giving. Does he have an ego? Well, of course he does. He's now the biggest movie star in the world. Back then, the biggest wrestling star in the world. Anybody would have a big ego. You have to get to that level. But he respects people, and he wants you to do well if you respect him. So to answer your question, he knew that I respected him. He knew that I was an athlete. He knew that I was in it for the long haul. So he said to me, I've got an idea. I don't want people to think that you're stupid. And I've already done the it doesn't matter so many times. Let's try this. Where you ask me a question. So here's exactly how it went. I said, hey, Rock, puts his hand up. Who in the blue hell are you? And I don't answer. Like everybody had done before, Kevin Kelly, Michael Cole, whoever else, and he just made fun of. He goes, it's all right. You can tell The Rock. And so I said, well, my name's Johnathan Coachman, but everybody just calls me the coach. And he says, the coach? The coach of what? The coach of a little girl's softball team? The coach of this? The coach of that? And they're all very funny lines, but he said the coach at least 10 times. So then at the end, he says, why do they call you the coach? And now I'm comfortable. And I said, well, it doesn't matter why they call you the coach. And that was my first interaction. And so when we walked out of the building that night in Chicago, everybody back there was, coach, 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 coach. It took one interview and The Rock saying my name 10 times, and the fans didn't even realize what he was doing. It's all a psychological game, and you have to play with the fans to make them believe and buy into what you're selling. And from that moment, I not only was grateful to him because I was the coach from night one, and then you fast forward to 2007, I think it was, and Rock was in L.A., and he says, I want to come back, and me and Eugene were having our feud, and I cut what I thought was one of the best promos of my life, and The Rock calls and says, I want to do something with these two guys, and we snuck them into the building in San Diego, and it's still one of the things I go back and watch sometimes. And for some reason, guys, I forgot to shave my head that night. And when I watched this great 22-minute segment, all I can think of is how nappy my hair looks. But I digress. What happened was The Rock comes out. I yell at Eugene. He backs up. And still to this day, the only time I've ever come out of character in the ring, because 20,000 people in San Diego had no idea The Rock was there. They hit his music. He comes out. Eugene goes nuts. He comes down to the ring. And for the first time in my career, I was allowed to talk back to The Rock. And again, that was his idea. So he respected me enough to allow me to go back at him 9 or 10 years after we had done that very first night. So that's a long-winded answer, and I apologize for that, but I wanted you to understand where the respect factor from both sides of the fence came from, and we knew that we had each other's back, and I wanted to see him do as well, if not better, than any of our big stars.